I woke up that Thanksgiving morning just like I had every year. The cold still crept through the cracks of my little house, a reminder that autumn was holding on a little too tight. I was up early, as usual, before the sun had fully stretched itself out of bed. I pulled my shawl around my shoulders and made my way to the kitchen. The kettle hummed softly as I waited for the water to heat. The smell of cinnamon and sweet potatoes lingered from the pie I had baked the night before, cooling gently on the counter, just like it always did. It was a tradition, you know, the one thing that always felt right. Jasmine would take care of the turkey, Malcolm would mix the drinks, and Talia would handle the playlist. And me, I'd bring the pie, the one that no one else ever really got quite right. That was my place in the family, my quiet, reliable role at the Langley Thanksgiving table. But this year, something didn't feel right. I hadn't heard from Malcolm in days. Not a word, not even a simple check-in. Usually, he'd call or send a text, asking what time he should come by to pick me up. But this time, there was nothing. I tried not to worry. Malcolm wasn't cruel. He was forgetful, sure, but he was never the type to forget something like this. Still, that little voice at the back of my mind, quiet but persistent, started whispering things I didn't want to hear. I brushed it off, stayed busy. I dressed slowly, carefully, pulling on my maroon cardigan, the one Malcolm always said brought out the gold in my skin. I pinned a small brooch to my chest, combed out my curls, and gave myself a quiet nod in the mirror. You still got it, Ruth. I took my seat by the window, just like I always did. I waited, and waited, watched the leaves swirling outside, watched the grandkids down the block running toward their houses with foil pans and ribbon-wrapped boxes, but not a single person came down my path. Not yet. At 11:30, I reheated some coffee. By 1 o'clock, I poured it out, watching it go cold in the mug. My phone sat there on the table, face up, no calls, no messages, nothing to say. We're running late. By 3 o'clock, the pie was cooled and the call log still empty. I picked up the phone, dialed Malcolm's number. It rang twice and went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave one. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table. It was just me now. The house, my quiet house, felt heavy. I fixed myself a small plate of leftovers, greens, a slice of ham, and macaroni from last night. The candle I lit for habit flickered softly next to the pie, its glow weak against the quiet. I whispered grace under my breath, but the words didn't taste the same. They were bitter, salted with the sadness I was trying not to feel. By 5 p.m., I couldn't pretend anymore. The waiting, the silence, it had worn thin. So, I picked up my phone again, thinking maybe I'd missed something, some reason for why my family hadn't come. I opened Facebook. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. It wasn't even a minute before I saw the first photo. There she was, Jasmine grinning wide, arm wrapped around Malcolm, standing in front of their perfectly golden turkey. The caption was all sunshine and gratitude. So thankful for this beautiful life and our beautiful people. #grateful #family first. I could feel my stomach tighten, but I scrolled down. And there it was, Talia, holding a glass of cider, laughing with cousins I hadn't seen since Easter. Then Malcolm, pouring wine, and Jasmine, holding the pie I gave her last Christmas. But it wasn't my pie. It was someone else's dessert, perfectly placed on that pristine table. And then the comments rolled in. Hundreds of them, all praising their perfect dinner. All asking, "Where's Mama Langley?" Not a single mention of me. Not a single word. My heart sank. I could feel the air thinning around me, pressing down on my chest. I stared at the photo, trying to make sense of it, as if somehow there might be a mistake that could erase the hurt. But no. There it was in high definition, clear, unrepentant. A Thanksgiving I wasn't part of, lived out in perfect, smiling cruelty. I hovered over the like button for a moment, but I didn't press it. Instead, I set the phone down gently on the table and stood up. The room felt colder somehow, and the light outside had faded. I moved to the window and looked out again. It was dark now, but the porch lights across the street still glowed a soft yellow. Laughter drifted from 2 doors down, but none of it was for me. I felt like a ghost in my own life, a shadow in a house that had once been full of warmth, full of life. I wrapped the pie in foil and slid it into the fridge. The tears didn't come immediately. Not yet. I just sat back down, the quiet feeling more suffocating than ever. The candle flickered low beside me. I picked up my phone once more, not to scroll or check messages but to reread the last message I had sent Malcolm. It was simple. "Let me know when you're picking me up. I've got the pie ready." It had been left on read. That's when the tears came. They were soft at first, not loud or violent, just steady, like rain on a cold window. My hands shook as I folded my napkin and placed it on my empty plate. It was the first time in my life I'd eaten Thanksgiving dinner alone. And I knew, with an awful clarity, that it would be the last time I ever stayed quiet about it. The next morning, I woke up still wearing my cardigan, the same one I'd put on the night before. I must have fallen asleep in that old armchair. My phone still rested on my lap. The candle beside me burned down to a stub. The room smelled faintly of sweet potato pie and cold disappointment. A familiar sting in my chest as my back ached from sitting too long. I reached for my phone, not because I expected anything to change, but because after 76 years, some habits don't die. Still, there were no calls, no texts, nothing from Malcolm, nothing from Talia, not even one of Jasmine's trademark emojis' little faces. She sends when she's avoiding responsibility, the ones that say, "Oops, we forgot." As if it's just a silly mistake instead of a knife twisting in your side. I opened Facebook again. The post was still there, and it had picked up more likes overnight. Over 100 now. Jasmine had even replied to a few, thanking people for their compliments. The spread is just perfect. I stared at her smile in the photo. It wasn't just joy, it was triumph. Triumph, like she had finally built the perfect holiday without the woman she called a burden. The woman who had spent years making sure she had every opportunity, every bit of space to grow. I could feel the heat in my chest, but I didn't let it out. And then I saw it. Talia had tagged me. It must have been accidental. Some careless click while uploading a photo. But there it was, a blue hyperlink under the family photo. Ruth Langley. I clicked it, half hoping it would take me somewhere else, somewhere that wasn't as painful. Instead, it opened a thread along one I'd never seen before. It wasn't public. It was a private family group Jasmine had created. And I had never been added. Apparently, Talia's tag triggered something that gave me temporary access. And in that moment, whether by grace or fate or some divine timing, I saw everything. The messages began 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. "Jasmine, are we seriously inviting Ruth again this year?" I could feel the venom in her words through the screen. "I'm not dealing with her moping over the table. She brings the mood down. It takes forever for her to even get out of the car." Malcolm's reply was one word. "Ma, she's my mom." But Jasmine wasn't finished. "Let's just keep it between us this year. She won't make a fuss. Tell her dinner's cancelled or something. She'll stay home and do her little prayer thing. Post a picture of the pie if she asks." Malcolm responded with a thumbs-up emoji. I stared at it, a small yellow icon that burned into my mind like a brand. The little thumbs up, the lazy, silent, complicit symbol of betrayal. Not a word. Not even an apology. Just that emoji. That one image cut through me, sharper than anything they could say to my face. But it didn't end there. More messages followed. Jokes about me falling asleep at the table last year. Complaints about my stories. Jasmine complained about the smell of Vicks and my dusty old perfume. Malcolm laughed. Talia remained silent. No defense, no protest. Just liked the comments and sent a gif of someone rolling their eyes when Jasmine said I was ruining the aesthetic of the table. I sat there, in the quiet of my living room, reading the messages. Each one was a small paper cut shallow on its own, but together, they bled. It wasn't just that they hadn't invited me, it was that they hadn't wanted me there. They'd intentionally planned a family holiday without the woman who had made that family possible. The woman who had paid for Malcolm's college when his father died. The woman who took out a loan to help Jasmine start her bakery. The woman who walked Talia to the bus stop every day when Jasmine was too busy. I looked around my living room at the framed photos on the walls, photos of their birthdays, their graduations, their baby showers, all of them with me in the background, smiling, cooking, holding someone's child, offering a glass of wine. I was the support beam, not the centerpiece. And now they had torn me out of the foundation as though I were nothing but a weed. That night, I opened the small safe in my bedroom. Inside, there was a sealed envelope labeled Christmas. I had written it 2 months ago, but it had been waiting for this moment. Inside the envelope was a letter to Malcolm and Talia, along with a notarized copy of my original will. And there, tucked between the pages, was the surprise. I'd spent years pinching pennies, saving birthday checks instead of cashing them, and quietly selling off jewelry I never wore. Over time, I had amassed more than they knew. My house was paid off. My retirement accounts were healthy. I had even invested in a few bonds my cousin's boy had recommended. It wasn't generational wealth, but it was enough to change their lives. I had planned to give them everything. To leave Malcolm the house. To set up a trust for Talia's education. Even Jasmine, God help, I'd written her into the document for a portion of the savings. But now I knew better. I placed the envelope on the table in front of me. I stared at it for a long time, and then, with a calmness I hadn't expected, I took a pair of scissors from the drawer and cut the envelope down the middle, right through the word Langley. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was clear. I picked up the phone and called Michelle Carter, my lawyer. She answered on the second ring. "Miss Ruth, happy Thanksgiving. Wait, is everything all right? I need to rewrite my will," I said. There was a pause. Tonight, I repeated. "Okay," she said, calm as always. "I'll come to you first thing in the morning." Here's the next part of the story. Michelle arrived the next morning, exactly at 9 a.m. sharp. She always had a punctual soul, that one. Back when she was just a teenager, she used to volunteer at the community center on weekends while the other kids were sleeping in. Now, here she was, a full-grown woman with a law degree, walking into my home with a briefcase and an expression I can only describe as fierce compassion. "I brought coffee," she said, handing me a cup. "Thought you might need it more than me." I smiled, even though I hadn't slept much. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I once taught Malcolm how to write cursive, where I bandaged his knee after he fell off his bike, where I took calls late into the night after his father passed away. The same table they had all forgotten. Michelle opened her case and pulled out a blank copy of my will. "You're sure?" she asked, her voice gentle. I looked her dead in the eye. I was going to change their lives. Now I'm going to protect someone else's. She nodded and didn't press further. We went over everything, line by line. I struck through Malcolm's name, removed Jasmine entirely. Talia. I hesitated on her name for a second, but in the end, she lost her place to Dot. In their place, I named the Haven House Shelter, a local nonprofit that provided housing and educational support to elderly women left behind by their families. I had been quietly donating to them for years. Now, I was giving them everything. The house, the bonds, the savings, everything. Michelle had brought the necessary witnesses, my neighbor, Eloise, and the young postal clerk from down the road. They signed where needed and left without asking questions. It was done in under an hour. My life's work was legally reassigned. I felt lighter afterward. Not happy, not vindicated, just unburdened. Michelle reached for her coat. "What will you do now?" she asked. I looked down at my folded hands. "I think I'll tell the truth." That evening, I opened Facebook again. The post was still there. Jasmine, smiling beside my son. Talia, holding a glass up and a toast. The comments were still pouring in. Beautiful family goals. So much love in these photos. I stared at those words for a long time, the back of my throat tight. Beautiful family, beautiful love. Words that had lost their meaning in my world. I clicked create post. I didn't type anything yet, just stared at the blinking cursor. Then I picked up my phone and opened the screenshots I had saved, the group chat messages. The jokes, the lies, the decision to exclude me. I uploaded them, one by one. Then I went to my photo gallery. I selected the photo I had taken of myself the night before, me sitting alone at the table. One plate, a single flickering candle beside a pie that hadn't been touched. My face, quiet, not crying, not bitter, just still. I posted it all in the Langley family Facebook group. Not my personal wall, the private group where Jasmine curated perfection, where they posted baby bump updates, Easter dress photos, and smiling group shots in matching flannel. I hit post. Then I wrote, "This was my Thanksgiving. I waited by the window. I baked the pie. I dressed up. No one came. I was going to surprise you all next month." I'd written a letter, prepared documents, made plans to pass along everything I worked for. The house, the savings, the future. "But you made it clear. I'm not family anymore. I've updated the will. I won't be a burden in your photos, your dinners, or your legacy. But I will be remembered, just not by you." I didn't reply, because the truth wasn't private anymore. They posted their Thanksgiving, I posted mine, and now the world could see the difference. I didn't hit send right away. I read it over 3 times. Then I hit post. I set the phone down and went to the porch. The sky was pink and orange, the trees rustling with the late fall wind. For the first time in days, I let myself smile just a little. It didn't take long. 10 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. Notifications, dozens, then hundreds. Cousins commenting, "What is this?" Old friends messaging me, shocked. Distant relatives asking why they hadn't heard from me in so long. The photo began circulating beyond the group. Someone had screenshotted it and posted it to their own page with the caption, "This is heartbreaking. Be better to your elders." By the end of the night, the post had been shared over 1,000 times. The comments were relentless. "I can't believe they did this to you. You deserve better. You're not alone. We see you." But the ones that hit hardest, they came from within the family. Aunt Bernice wrote, "Malcolm, is this true? Cousin Lisa, I was just talking to Ruth last week. She was so excited for Thanksgiving. I'm sick over this." And then there was one from Malcolm himself. "This wasn't how it looks. There's a lot going on. Please, can we talk privately?" Asterisk, I didn't reply. Because the truth wasn't private anymore. They posted their Thanksgiving. I posted mine, and now the world could see the difference. Asterisk, there was a time when I used to believe family was everything. A belief that came from years of sacrifice, of love poured out without asking for anything in return. I gave them my time, my energy, my resources. When Malcolm came to me with that wide smile, asking for another favor, I never hesitated, even when I knew it would stretch me thin. I didn't mind, because that's what mothers do, right? They give, they sacrifice. They hold everything together, even when it feels like their arms are breaking. But that Thanksgiving, the silence hit harder than the years of quiet endurance I had built up. I sat by that window, pie in hand, waiting, hoping, maybe Malcolm just lost track of time. Maybe there was a good reason. But then, the photos started popping up on my screen. The happy faces, the smiling poses, the picture-perfect meal. And there, in the middle of it all, was me. No chair at the table for me. No place. No acknowledgement. It hurt, but the worst part wasn't the exclusion. It was the realization that this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a forgotten detail or a misunderstanding. This was intentional. A deliberate choice to leave me out of the picture. No apologies. No explanation. Just a silent erasure. I could have stayed quiet. I could have pretended it didn't sting. I could have smiled and accepted that this was how it was going to be now, but deep down I knew better. I knew I deserved more. I wasn't just the woman who cooked, who held the family together, who wiped away tears and dried up the messes. I was someone worth showing up for. I wasn't just a backdrop to their happy moments. I was the one who made those moments possible. And that, my dear, is something no one can take away from you. Not even family. That night, after I read the post from Jasmine, I knew what I had to do. I didn't need to wait for an apology. I didn't need to wait for them to realize the depth of their actions. I had waited long enough. The time for patience had passed. It was time for them to understand the consequences of their choices. It was time for me to take control of my own story. The next morning, I woke up with purpose. I knew what needed to be done. My will had always been a source of comfort, a way to protect them, to provide for them even when I was gone. But now, it would serve another purpose. I called Michelle, my lawyer, and told her to come by that afternoon. There was no turning back now.